Did you know that Formula One cars can be remotely disabled? What about how hot a cockpit can get in the middle of a race? So here are 10 things that you didn't know about Formula One. And to start things off, we're going to be talking about F1 driver safety and go into just how far the sport has come. But for some background, we need to go way back. In the beginning of the F1 days, it was a known fact that stepping into the car came with a very real risk of serious injury or worse, death. And it took a while for things to change. See, back in F1's most dangerous years, three-time champion Jackie Stewart played a significant part in making F1 safer. And after Ayrton Senna and Roland Ratzenberger's deaths in 1994 and the unfortunate Jules Bianchi incident in 2014, F1 made sure that the best safety measures were in place. And that brings us to our point, which is the F1 tracksuit and the integrity of it. See, F1 tracksuits have been carefully created with the help of a fireproof material, Nomex, to ensure that drivers are as safe as possible in case of emergency. They've all been tested to withstand flames and a temperature of up to 800 degrees for just over 10 seconds. And it's worked out for the best, most notoriously in 2020, when Romain Grosjean had to climb through flames to safety in a crash many believe he could have died in. And well, if the tracksuit wasn't foolproof, who knows what could have happened. But now, on to the next fact, and one that many people never even think of, and it has to do with the engine. See, nowadays, many modern cars have IP addresses, and they can connect to Wi-Fi or a hotspot. And of course, an F1 car has an IP address too. An ex-Red Bull engineer, Dan Drury, gave us an excellent explanation of just what an F1 team can do with this IP address or IP addresses, as Dan explained that there were multiple due to the complexity of an F1 car. Dan says, and I quote, "Every F1 car has an IP address you can connect to. It's how we communicate with the car for telemetry, diagnostics and updates. But that also means you have to be very careful. I remember a case where an engineer accidentally connected to the wrong car. He thought he was flashing ECU software onto a system running simulated inputs. Instead, it was a real engine on the testbed. The update went through and the engine, well, it went bang." See, many people think of basketball or football players when mentioning athletes, but many people forget about F1 drivers and the tip-top shape they must be in, and especially in their core and neck. See, G-force is a measure of acceleration, and we as normal people typically have 1 g of force on our bodies due to gravity. On a commercial plane, people will not normally feel greater than 1.3 Gs or less than 0.7 Gs, which means that your body will feel a little bit heavier and a little bit lighter respectively. But then there are F1 drivers who experience crazy levels of G-force. In some sections of the tracks, like Maggots and Beckett's at Silverstone or Eau Rouge at Spa, drivers can experience around 5 Gs of force. But the average person, they would probably just pass out if put under this stress, as most of us would pass out at about 4 to 5 Gs. But now, when a driver crashes, that's where it gets insane. In Romain Grosjean's crash at Bahrain, the Haas driver experienced 67 G-forces. Luckily, as said earlier, he was relatively alright, but this shows the severe stress that can be put upon these athletes and just how ruthless this sport can be. To the well-versed F1 fan, this next fact seems almost normal, but in reality, it is shocking and shows just how skilled F1 mechanics and engineers really are. See, in an F1 race, time is critical. 1 lost second can mean lost positions, lost points, and lost money. And so, when time is that big of an issue, teams make the most of it. And one place that we see this is during a routine pit stop. But first, let's look at some other racing organizations and see how long it typically takes them to complete a pit stop. In NASCAR, teams will take about 10 to 12 seconds to complete a pit stop. In IndyCar, a good pit stop will be around 7 seconds. But F1 is on a whole new level. The record for the fastest F1 pit stop was set by McLaren and Lando Norris at the 2023 Qatar Grand Prix with a stop time of 1.8 seconds. But while that was extremely quick, it was not exactly a fluke. There are many occasions where teams can break 2 seconds or less. In fact, so far in the 2024 season, all of the top 10 fastest pit stops have been either exactly 2 seconds or less than that. See, F1 teams make it into a science. A pit crew can hold around 20 engineers and mechanics, with each person having a very minute yet very critical job. But other organisations and racing series are a little bit stricter, like NASCAR, which only allows 5 people over the pit wall, or IndyCar, which permits just 7 people to get over the pit wall. Both much less than F1 teams, who throw out anyone who can be helpful in any way. This just comes to show how advanced F1 is, because every little piece of the puzzle is as critical as the next, from the driver driving to the mechanic taking a front wheel off during a pit stop.
Pitstop.
Next up, it should come as no surprise that there are some things in F1 that are crazy expensive. For example, the steering wheel. You see, a Formula 1 steering wheel is one of the most advanced things that you'll see in the sporting world, with countless buttons and dials, but they're all very important. The steering wheel has buttons that range from simply opening the DRS when allowed to making changes to limit fuel consumption. Oh yeah, the wheels also need to be as durable and as lightweight as possible, to ensure that the teams can be free of worry if wondering whether the wheel will fall apart. And it just so happens to be the lightest component in an F1 vehicle, coming in at just about 1.3 kilograms. The wheels, made of many components but most prominently carbon fiber and fiberglass, come in at a whopping price, with estimates as low as $50,000 but as high as more than 6 figures. Pretty crazy, right? But now, let's go into something that's never been tried before, but something that we're certain of. You see, downforce is an extremely crucial factor in the Formula 1 world, but let's do a quick rundown of what it really is. Downforce is the vertical force that acts on a car when it starts driving. It pushes the car to the ground and helps out the car in terms of grip, handling and traction. It's probably the most important piece to an F1 car. For certain tracks, like Monza, teams can reduce downforce, making the car go faster, and with less drag on the straights with the trade-off of stability. But for other tracks, like at Singapore, teams are going to want that high downforce, even if it means they need to sacrifice some speed or lots down the straight. But let's give some perspective to how much downforce an F1 car generates. At 150 km per hour, the car can create an equal amount of downforce to the weight of the car. But by the time the car reaches top speed, it can create almost 3 or 4 times as much downforce in comparison to the weight of the car. And so, when you put 2 and 2 together, you can realize something crazy. With that level of downforce, an F1 car can stick to pretty much any surface, and though it may be crazy to think about, an F1 car could definitely stick upside down if it was going fast enough and creating enough downforce. But now, let's move on to something that we see happen every race. It's a well-known fact that any professional athlete will lose a significant amount of weight during a sporting event, like NBA player Paolo Banchero, who became infamous for losing around 7 pounds per game, or a marathon runner who will lose around 5 to 10 pounds per race. But there is one athlete that a lot of people forget when it comes to losing weight while competing, and that's a racing driver, and particularly an F1 racing driver. See, the Singapore Grand Prix is the perfect example of this phenomenon because the humidity that occurs there adds to the losses. George Russell, one of the tallest drivers on the grid, threw some humour into his quote on it, saying, "We lose almost 4 kilograms of fluids in an hour-and-a-half race, so it's a pretty good weight loss program if that's what you're chasing."
Lost 4 kilos in that race.
And for just a little quick conversion, 4 kilos translates to little less than 9 pounds. See, it's simply so hot in those cars, with the cockpit reaching up to 140 degrees Fahrenheit, so anyone would sweat as much as that. But it's still a crazy phenomenon to think about, and it should explain why all drivers step on a scale and are checked on after the sessions. But how do they not pass out? It beats me. I mean, I certainly would, but I think I can explain part of it in our next F1 fact. In other sports, you'll have water on the sidelines or breaks in between periods, but that's not the case in this crazy sport. But they have to stay hydrated, right? Well, yes they do, and here is how.
I have the seat full of water, like full of water.
Must be the water.
It may not be seen when watching normally, but drivers have a bag of fluid. Well, to be more specific, it's a bag of water mixed with various vitamins and minerals underneath the nose of the car. And when they need a drink, all they have to do is press a button and a plastic tube will bring them their drink. But because it's under the nose of the car, it heats up quickly. Haas driver Kevin Magnussen said it gets almost like tea, too hot to drink. Carlos Sainz said,
"It doesn't taste good at all."
So I guess that you could say that the hydration definitely comes at a cost, but it still helps. And of course there are times when it just doesn't work. Like that one infamous time when Kimi's engineer had to break terrible news to him that his drink was not connected.
Is the drink? Is it on now? Okay, I'm not.
We forgot to connect, Jimmy. You will not have the drink, sorry.
Now, let's shift gears. Get it? You know how we inflate our car's tyres with air? Well, we can't say the same for F1 cars. See, tyre pressure can make or break your race in Formula 1. It's essential to practically everything, so it should come as no surprise that F1 teams are pretty picky about what they choose to inflate their tyres with. And so, for F1 teams, nitrogen gas is used instead of simply air. See, nitrogen gas provides a higher consistency. First of all, because teams are more unsure of the moisture of air in certain countries and in certain races. But for nitrogen gas, teams don't have to worry about moisture like they would if they just used air. Secondly, nitrogen molecules are simply larger, and they will not seep through the tyres as much as if air were in the tyres. But you all didn't come here for science, you all came here for racing. So let's move on to our last fact. The 107% rule is a rule that most F1 fans probably don't know about, so let's explain it real quick. The 107% rule is essentially a way that the F1 can weed out any drivers or any teams that are not good enough to start the actual race, and it was introduced back in 1995 when some new regulations spaced out the field and its competitiveness, and in 1996 it was put in place. But we haven't explained what exactly it is. So here we go. In order to start a race, a driver must come within 107% of the top performer in the first session in order to be allowed to race. Even then, a driver may be allowed to race if the FIA lets them, hence why we haven't seen drivers disqualified due to this reason in the recent past. But back in the early days of the rule, we would see quite a few instances where drivers could not start the race, typically with the lower level teams, like Forti and Minardi, who combined did not reach 107% on 12 occasions in 1996. And the most recent implementation of the rule, Logan Sargent, former Williams driver who was very recently let go. Last season, he didn't come within 107% on 2 occasions, but he was still allowed to start the race, which is why many fans may not have been aware of the rule in those moments. But for now, if anyone breaks the 107% rule, it can be a sign that we probably will not see them stick around for long. Now, these were 10 things that you probably didn't know about Formula 1. Be sure to like and subscribe for the best F1 content out there, and check out these videos while you're at it.